Welcome everyone to this hot topic on a look at Gen Z. And before I introduce Carole, I'm going to remind everyone that the League of Women Voters of the Lower Cape Fear is a nonpartisan organization. We neither oppose nor support candidates or political parties. We are fully committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion in principle and in practice. And if you want to learn more about our policies and organization, please visit our website. We also want to recognize that we are grateful to be able to be meeting today on the tribal lands of the Waccamaw, Siouan, and Indigenous people of the Lower Cape Fear. Okay, I am very happy to share with you a little bit of background information on our speaker today. So Carole O'Neill is a retired assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction from the Monroe-Woodbury Central School District in Central Valley, New York. She's taught as an adjunct professor at the graduate level for the New York Institute of Technology, Lincoln Center campus, and Westbury, Long Island, New York. And when she starts to talk, you'll realize, oh yeah, she's from New York. She currently serves as an educational consultant to several school districts in New York, and she also teaches the freshman seminar course as an adjunct professor at UNCW. But her most relevant qualifications for this topic might be that she's a mother of 2 and a grandmother of 6, all of whom are members of Gen Z. Given the impact that Gen Z is going to have on our country and our world, and we realize it's important that we really understand what attracts, motivates, and engages this generation. Probably everyone in the room has a story about how someone from this generation said something, did something, didn't do something that we would have expected that they would have done that totally confused us. And a lot of what Carole is going to do today for us is to provide some insight on this generation and how we might need to interact with them to help them get engaged in the world around them. So please welcome Carole O'Neill.
Thank you, Leslie. Good morning. It is an absolute pleasure to be here today to speak to you about a topic that is very important to me. As Leslie said, I have my own little lab situation with 6 grandchildren who are all Gen Zers. So as I was doing the research and for both my career and for this presentation, in almost every incident, I could go back to something that I had experienced with my grandchildren. What we're going to do today is look at who are these Zoomers. You might be a boomer from the baby boom. These are the Zoomers. And why is it important that we even get to know who they are? And most importantly, what do we need to do to understand them? Now, I'm going to be referencing some research, some experiences, and some information that I have gathered. It is not every Zoomer that is going to fit this profile. You may know plenty of people in this age group who do not exhibit some of these issues. They may have some, they may have all. It is a unique generation. It goes from those that are 12 years old to 25. So it is an evolving generation. We can look at other generations that have been complete. This one is evolving. So keep in mind that these are examples of situations and experiences that Zoomers have had, but not necessarily all of them. The reason I got involved with this, as Leslie said, I had the opportunity last fall to teach at UNCW. It is the freshman seminar. It is a mandatory course for all freshmen, and it's mandatory that they take it in the fall, so we get them all on the same page. A lot of professors were seeing that students were being very quiet. In my generation, when you went to college, it was all about discourse. It was all about arguing. You learned the art of argumentation. And students were very quiet. They were not as engaged. They were not interacting within the campus. And that's not just UNC, the whole structure for the state, but throughout colleges. Professors were scratching their heads saying, what's going on? Why aren't they engaged? So part of the program that they put together, besides the academics, how do you write a paper? How do you send an email to a professor? All of those things. We had to start looking at other things. So I thought, well, who are these people that I'm going to be in front of, that I'm going to teach these things to? The first thing I did was look at the learning goals of this particular course. And two of them stood out to me. One was about inquiry, where they have to have discussions of real life situations. Well, if they're very hesitant to speak, this is going to be a big challenge. And the second one, to analyze, to critically think. How are they going to do that? Where are they getting their information? And how are they going to do that? So I thought, okay, I need to know a lot more about how I teach this group of students. When I was an early educator in New York, we used a book called The Courage to Teach by Parker Palmer. We used it at NYU and at Columbia. And in that book, he said something very simple. We teach who we are, and we are who taught us. So I became a teacher, and any educator in the room, you wanted to be like the teacher in front of you. My teachers lectured. I didn't do group work. I learned how to take copious notes. I didn't have this flow of conversation or slouching in the back of the room. I sat like this, and I wanted to be that teacher. I wanted to, as I was an English teacher, I wanted them to love Shakespeare as much as I did. And if I talked long enough, surely they would get it. Today, that does not work. So that was why I started looking to see, who are they? I also, as pointed out, have these 6 beautiful grandchildren. They are all Zoomers, every single one of them, from the oldest one, the girl in the middle on the top row. Aiden is going to be 20, and right in front of her is my youngest, who is 12 years old, Alex. And as I put this presentation together, I could match almost every experience I'm talking to you with a real life one that my family has gone through. So that just made it more real to me about what's going on and how we as a group have to look at them and say, what do we do to help them? Well, the way we do, we start to looking at what is a generation? Why do we have them? Generations, especially the ones we're going to talk about, were formed by politicians, statisticians, census bureaus, would put together groups of people and gave them a name based on experience or a historical event. The Greatest Generation, we all know the Greatest Generation. This is when they were born between 1901 and 1924, but it wasn't the years they were born, it's what they did, it's what they accomplished. They went through the Depression, they fought in World War II, they rebuilt America. We honor them, we know who they are. My parents were of the Greatest Generation. Then the Silent Generation, and the powers that be said, this was the McCarthyism time. We really can't put much to them. They kind of put their nose to the grindstone. Some of them were born just as the war was ending. And so their take on life was very different than the generation before. Then the baby boomers, of which I am a very proud member, 1946 to 1964. Now, these generations are US generations. In Korea, they have baby boomers, but theirs were after the Korean War. So it's a historical event, but the years may change because of where you are in the world. Generation X, of which my 2 children are, was 1965 to 1979. They're in their 40s to 50s now. You have your millennials, followed by the group we're going to look at today, Generation Z. And where do you go after Z? You go to Generation Alpha. And that is a generation that I can't even imagine what it's going to be like working with them because of the influences of technology and the digital world. What needs to be noted is that most of these generations that I'm talking about, they reflect statistics, but not all races in America. If we look at 1901 to 1924, the representation of minority groups of African Americans or any other minority group that we even in the country are not represented in the experiences that happened. So as I said to you earlier, just like every Gen Z or born within a given time frame has that name, doesn't mean they have experienced the same things. What Gen Z does have going for them, they are digital natives. There is my youngest grandchild, 1 year old, with a device in her hand. That's my son-in-law. And because of that, that's what they do. They are on a device most of the time, even in the same room with someone. The students I had, they would snap, that's their texting message, snap their roommate who was in the bed next to them. In the past, you'd say, hey, you want to go to dinner? Now you text it, you send a note, you send a message. You don't have that eye contact, that looking and talking to people. It doesn't happen. The device gives them streaming video. It entertains them. They are Netflix fanatics. TikTok, Instagram, Snap, Reddit, dating apps. One of the most fascinating things I found out in teaching, we have a group on campus called CARE, and they come in and they talk to the students about different topics, sensitive topics. So they came in and they were talking about dating apps. And I'm in the back of the room, the lecture hall, and I'm like, dating apps? Why aren't they talking about dating apps? It just seemed so, well, because first of all, there are dating apps for straight, gay, bi, trans, names I'd never heard of before. But also, that's how they meet. And I'm saying, no, you go to the quad. That's where, you know, the guys are over here and the girls are over there. And no, they meet them first on a dating app that says, I'm at UNCW. Oh, so am I. And then they arrange to meet. But that device is the connector. It absolutely blew me away. I understood it more for a group of bi students or trans where you don't know who people are, but it's universal. That's how they check to see who's on campus, because they're in their rooms. They're isolated. We think they're isolated. I do. I would say, come to my grandchildren, get out, go out and play. But I'm with my friends, Grandma. I'm busy. And it's a different busy. And we have to start looking at that busy and say, how is it different? And how do we understand that busyness? Because they feel totally connected. The biggest impact that has caused this has been COVID. They are the COVID generation. The effects on this generation are devastating. I'm going to take you through the ages and show you how each one of them have been affected. We all were affected by COVID. We all have different stories to tell. But in this generation, from the youngest to the oldest, the impact seems to have been the greatest. If you were just starting your career or just starting to go to college when COVID hit, let's take the career. I graduated, I worked hard, I had the interview, I got the job, I got an apartment with two of my friends. We've got this great career ahead of us. COVID hits and you're furloughed. You have no money to pay the rent. You have nowhere to go but back home. Can you go back home? Do you want to go back home? Or what if you started going to college? You're in high school, you did all the work, you took the SATs, you prepared everything, you went on the college tours, you're there, you're a freshman, you're just getting to your independence, and the college closes and they send you home. And you've lost all that little bit that you started is gone. That's at the top end. But what if they were in middle and high school? And we had a lot of them in middle and high school. Middle school, that's when a voice were over there and, oh, isn't he cute? That whole social emotional development that's critical to middle school children is gone. It wasn't there. And high school, the big moments, the prom, the junior prom, the graduation, the college tours, the essay, all taken away. They were left home. And at this age, they were left home alone. And they learned isolation. Every school gave them a device. We were so happy to give out devices to kids because we were going to connect and we were going to teach. Teachers were totally unprepared on how to engage them, and students were totally unprepared how to use the device effectively. Could they use it for other reasons? Oh, yes. But to use it the way the schools had planned didn't happen. One of the saddest stories I had heard was in South Carolina. They had no connectivity. They had devices for students, but they couldn't connect. So the woman said, we able to outfit a school bus with Wi-Fi. And so they had these portable Wi-Fis on the bus. And one day a week, the bus would come to your neighborhood and you had to sit away from everybody, but sit on the ground outside and connect. And you had connectivity one day to do your work because that's all they could do. So the rest of the time, these kids were alone. If the parents were able to go to work and they were 10 years old, you thought, well, I could leave them alone at 10 years old. And that's what their lives were. It continues. If the elementary student, they lost the fundamentals of reading and writing. And that is one of the biggest gaps in their education. You have to have the basics. If any of you were elementary teachers, you know that is the core. No one can do anything beyond if you don't get it done right at the beginning. And they lost it. The little kids lost lining up, taking turns, getting lunch, learning how to go get a lunch tray. It just was a time where everything was frozen, and we haven't made up that gap yet. If you lost a beloved member of your family, or the fear of losing someone you love. So I'm a child, I'm home, I'm 10 years old, and my grandma's sick or my grandfather's sick, an aunt might be sick. But wait a minute, what am I seeing on the news? Oh, refrigerator trucks, because they don't have room for all the bodies. And there is no adult to explain this to me, no adult to take away the fear that I have from seeing this, because I am alone. I have no one, there's no teacher that's going to say, oh, well, you know what we saw in the news today, and make me feel better. If they are the long haulers, the youngest people who had COVID carry the long hauler gene for some reason, and they have been crippled by this and can't go to work now that the world is better. It has been one of the greatest impacts on this generation. They did not ask to be alone with this device. The world gave them this as the survival tool. We went out and played and we did different things in our childhood. Theirs is completely different from ours. Those that were left alone suffered the greatest isolation. Those that were home and the parents were home, they're different. Like I said, there's no one definer of this. Parents did little pods, and they had little schools going on in basements and in parts of homes. It ran the gamut, but the saddest part was the isolation that these students felt, and there was no one there to help them. The next biggest part of their, what they have to, we're not moving, oh, there we go. They are the school shooting generation. They will never know a world in which feeling safe in school is normal. Never. Before Columbine era, BCE, they now have this before the Common Era. We call it before in education, before Columbine. This is what we worried about. Running in the halls, chewing gum, food fight in the cafeteria. That's what we had. Those were the issues that we had to deal with inside a school building. Not outside, just our world. School was safe except for those things, and those things were rare. Then we have the Columbine era. And the Columbine era changed the world. It started in 1996 with the Texas Tower at the University of Texas. Now that happened outside. That was not inside a building. So it really didn't get the notoriety that comes after that with school shootings, but it was on an educational grounds at the University of Texas. 1999 Columbine. Columbine, 13 people were killed. The world learned what a manifesto was. And we faced the horror for the very first time that someone would invade a school and hurt a child. 1999. We, in the education world, we did tabletops. We had to be prepared for this to happen, but we couldn't be too serious about it because this was never going to happen again. Why? It's just not going to happen. So we did tabletops, we did drills with teachers, but we couldn't frighten the children. We couldn't tell them that someone may come in the the building with a gun, which it was something that went against the grain. We had all the elementary teachers and the parents at the PTA saying, don't you frighten my child. And we thought it was a fluke. And anyway, in New York, we thought it was in Colorado. You know, that's a place where they all have guns, and whatever we could do to justify it, we did. Then the Virginia Tech shooting happened. Then Northern Illinois University. Again, we're feeling pretty safe in the world because it's colleges and that one fluke in a high school. And then Sandy Hook. And Sandy Hook, I have a personal connection to. My son and my beautiful grandchildren that he has, that little boy Brady was 6 years old, and they were 2 months into their new school district, which was almost Newtown. And my daughter-in-law was a teacher in the high school. My granddaughter Aiden, the oldest one, was in the 4th grade. Brady was in the 1st grade, 10 minutes away from Sandy Hook. And the baby was in daycare. When the word got out, we in education knew what was going on. My son knew that there was something going on. He called me, asked, Danny, I'm an hour away in New York, but I know there's something terrible going on. I don't know what it is. My daughter-in-law is trying to get high school kids who did a little bit of practice, but didn't know why they were in a closet to be quiet. Because when you do these drills, you have to tell them you have to be quiet so the shooter doesn't hear you. You avoid windows. You have these plans. You move your children someplace safe. So they're on their phones. They're giggling because it can't be real. My granddaughter, who's 4, is hysterical, crying because the teacher looked so angry. And it was fear that she saw, not anger. And she was pushing us and making us go in this room. And I was scared, Grandma. I was so scared. Brady, who was in the 1st grade, just did what he was told, just as the 1st graders in Sandy Hook did what they were told. And they went into a closet and they hid. The effects of Sandy Hook reeled the world. And we said, all right, now we've got to change. We have got to be better. We can't allow this to go on. Then we had Maryville. Then we had another college. Then we had an Aztec High School. Then we had Parkland, Florida. That one got everybody's attention. These others didn't. But Parkland, there were 17 kids that were killed. So that raised the flag a little bit more, but nothing was done. But these kids are watching and seeing and hearing this. Santa Fe, UNC Charlotte had 2. Santa Clara, Uvalde. Uvalde was just a year ago. Where children were begging for someone to come in and save them. The Charlottesville in 2022, I was teaching at UNCW with this freshman seminar. And I said, did you all, when I met with them, did you all hear what happened? So what did you do? Well, the first thing, I had to text my mom to let her know I was okay because they were worried, even though it was in another state. But they have a routine. They know who to notify. They know how to mark themselves safe if they are in the area. This is their life. This is a norm for them. I find it absolutely horrible, but this is their norm. Then Michigan University. Michigan University, there was a student in Michigan who was a student at Sandy Hook. How unfortunate for that child to have been in that school and this school. When I talked to my granddaughter about that, she goes, yeah, but that's because it can happen anywhere. It's a fact. And when I had prepared the slides, this is where I ended. And then the other day I had to add the Covenant School. And this is their world. This is what they know happens in school. This is it. It's sad. So what does it look like in the school today? Lockdown drills. Lockdown drills, and more drills. When my daughter was driving her 2 girls for the first day of school, Caroline was 7, and Sophia was going into kindergarten. She was 5. And so as she's driving, Megan said, Caroline, what can you tell Sophia so that she's ready for Mrs. Krill, who had the same kindergarten teacher? And very wistfully, Caroline says, well, Thea, if we're doing a lockdown drill and you're in the bathroom, you have to stand on the toilet and you can't get out till Mrs. Krill calls you. Don't go if it's not her. And my daughter's welling up with tears, calls me hysterical crying. That's not what I want my girls to know and to have. But that's real. Caroline was 7 and she had gone through all of these lockdown drills. After Sandy Hook, we did drill the kids. We drill them and we drill them and we drill them. So you have the fear with you all the time. You're supposed to feel safe because we're telling you, we're putting you in a safe place, but you're believing there's someone out there to hurt you. We have to teach them to stay quiet. How do you keep a kindergarten child quiet when you're trying to hide them? Or a high schooler who doesn't believe what you're doing. It is something that the teachers work very hard at, getting them to understand. They have to know their safe spot. Yes, what you do in the bathroom. What happens if the drill is when you're in art? What happens if you're in music? What happens if you're on the playground? What happens? They have to know how to survive a shooting in multiple places in their school. Bulletproof backpacks. You can go online and you can buy your child a bulletproof backpack. There is a TikTok out, I didn't show it today, of a mother practicing with her son and his new bulletproof backpack. So she has the little boy sitting at a table coloring, and the backpack's in the corner, and he's working, and she yells, "Lockdown," or "intrude," or whatever the phrase, and he jumps up, he grabs his backpack, he goes in the corner, and he squats down. He's a little guy, he's probably kindergarten or first grade. So all you see are 2 little hands, and he's got it resting on his feet, and he's covered underneath it. And he is chanting, "He can shoot my hands and I'll live. He can shoot my feet and I'll live, but he can't shoot my head or my chest." He's 6 years old. And bulletproof backpacks is a big business. It is a very big business. Parents are buying it and training their children because they're frightened to send them to school. Learning how to apply tourniquets. We teach that in schools. We teach it in New York to our high school kids so that they can help someone not bleed out. Because they found out in Parkland and at the high school level at the Pulse nightclub, a lot of people could have been saved if someone knew how to apply tourniquets. So schools reflect society, and that's what we do. We teach them how to survive and what happens in society. This, again, you have COVID, the impact of COVID. This is their world. It was never our world. I mean, I do remember doing drills and going under the desk because I guess it was the Cold War and we thought we were going to be bombed. But then that went away. And since it never happened, we kind of didn't think it was a big deal. This is not going away. This is going to stay for a long time. The next biggest impact is technology. It is these are the big 3: TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat. There's also Twitter, Reddit, and YouTube. So this is the beginning of their expressing themselves, connecting to the world outside of their little school or home. It also is a place where they could be shamed by their friends. They could be isolated. They could be canceled. Why are they quiet in classrooms? Because if I say something and you are over there and you're recording me and you're going to post it and people are going to see it or people are going to hear it. So it's better to say nothing. Someone may take a picture of me and fat shame me because I've gained weight and everybody will be laughing. Or none of the above. And it's just a vehicle for me to feel bad. So that was TikTok. TikTok doesn't look like that any longer. It started out that way, and there are people who still do that. It has become very political. It has become very risque. It has become very dangerous in some instances of what they put up there. There are no guardrails. There is a certain amount of monitoring, but how much is yet to be determined. Instagram and Snapchat. Because of the snafu, I'm not going to go to show you examples. I'll just tell you that in Instagram, when they go on, they can post pictures of themselves. They have something called My Story, where they can just do a picture and not say anything. Things go back and forth. They love Instagram because I can take that picture and put it up there and everybody can see it. I don't have to use words. It also gives them a lot of video to watch that they might not normally see. And Snapchat is their text messaging. It's also the one where you take a picture and it disappears after a certain amount of time. My Story that you put up on Instagram goes away in 24 hours. So you can make a statement, but then it's gone. It's not permanent. And they like to do that. And they like to see somebody else's statement real quick. That's the process that they go through when they do this. The politics is the issue with most of this. They believe they are getting their news. Now, hopefully one of these will work. This is on the right. I picked something where I wanted to show you. You will see Speaker McCarthy addressing the Congress. It's the words in front of him that I want you to pay attention to. These are someone's words interpreting, influencing whoever's watching, okay?
But I know you care about the people on the border because you say so. It's just not the border of America. Because in this bill that you say you put people before politics, you put $410 million for border security in Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, Tunisia, and Oman. You will fund walls and technology to protect the Middle East, but not to protect America. And what's worse, you brag about it. And when the American...
Okay. What do our own people, why do our own people hate our country? So that's someone's opinion. But if you're not aware that it's someone's opinion, you think that's attached to Speaker McCarthy. It's part of how they influence people. Now, I'm going to show you something different on the left. And this is someone who uses a political figure, the president, and does a commentary next to it.
Good morning. This does not look good, people. You know what you need to understand here is this guy is doing the best he can. You have to understand he came in having to clean up a mess, a huge disaster from the previous president. Had to try to fix the pandemic the best he could because the previous president didn't do anything with this pandemic and let it get out of control. So he's had to fix it. And he's had to fix other issues and deal with Republicans not wanting to pass his agenda. That's the problem here, people. Stop blaming this guy. You need to start blaming the Republicans because the Democrats are trying to pass the agenda, which the Republicans don't want to pass to help us.
All right, so you get the idea. She is what you call an influencer. She has her own position, her own little station, her TikTok. And if you like it, if you're watching it, you go, oh, I like her. You not only build up her credibility, you become a follower, but her feeds you will get every day. More will come to you. It's how the whole system is set up. This is one person's opinion. She's not a politician. She's an everyday person. And she goes on and she expresses her opinion because that's her First Amendment right. The person who wrote in front of Speaker McCarthy, that's different. That's how that person sees it. But if you are someone who doesn't trust news, period, did not grow up with Walter Cronkite and the Brinkley brothers, you think this is real, that she has authority because, my God, she's got 2 million followers. that's the credibility. How many followers do you have? It doesn't mean that what you're saying is correct or right or true. It's how they see influences, how they see people's worth, for lack of a better way to say it. Oops, okay. Okay. I don't know why that's there. Okay. Sorry, the bottom is gone. The influencers. It's all about influence. What you buy, what you eat, what you wear, what you think. And the influencers that are out there they look like that. They will talk about food or restaurants that they've been to, things that are good, things that are bad. And they truly are influenced by them. They have a lot of credibility. Within this world of buying food and who they are and shopping for labels, they have developed their own language in the midst of all of this, because they had to come up with a way that is quicker, for lack of a better word, to connect with people. So their vocabulary, okay. If you look up there, if you could take a moment and see if you can match any of the words on the left with their definition. Okay. Their words, besides bussin', I think, and bougie, we know all the words that are up there. And see if you can see what they mean. And we have a Gen Zer in the room who knows exactly what they mean. She cannot give you any answers. But the words on the left are words that they use all the time. After you've looked at that, you can look at the acronyms on the bottom and see if you can figure out. If LOL means laugh out loud, what does IKR mean? Because if you're in business, they're putting these acronyms and they're using these words in their emails.
People have sheets on their table.
No, I don't know if they have paper they want to write on, but we'll go over the answers. Snack means attractive. Okay. Bussin' means delicious. So you would say, this pie is bussin', because that means you think it's a delicious piece of pie. I'm weak means hilarious. And not hilarious, but it's hysterical, funny. It's kind of all things. It was hard for me to get one word because their words have several meanings, not just one meaning. Bougie, fancy. Fancy. She wore a bougie suit to the gym today, so you would say that it was fancy. And salty means jealous. Okay, these are things that salty to us has something totally different. If I said to you, I have tea. Gossip, thank you. Tea is gossip. But when you first see it, you go, I have tea. Well, tea is what you drink. Tea is it iced or hot? And then you say, okay, spill it, because I want to hear your gossip. If you say, you're a whole meal, and I say, well, I'm getting more swole. I'm working out. Swole means I'm working out. I'm muscular. I'm in shape. Those are conversations that they have, that they really do have. Or that's what they're texting. So you could walk by, and I have walked by my granddaughters and looked at the text messages. I have no idea what they're saying to each other. None. Swole? I mean, what do you mean salty? I know these words to mean one thing. They know them to mean something else. Vibe check. My Wi-Fi slaps. How you doing? Great. My Wi-Fi is terrific. That's their world. That's okay. The answers on the acronyms, I know, right? My youngest granddaughter, I get that all the time. If I say, yeah, I know, right? But I get IKR. That feeling when is a phrase they use very often. Fear of missing out. Remember I told you about, I was started to tell you about my granddaughter in the high school. I didn't finish that story. The bunch of girls got together. They did not exclude her. They did not say this is for everyone but Caroline. But she wasn't included. And she's watching through all these Instapro pictures and snaps, everybody having fun. And she wasn't there. And it was devastating. My daughter said it was devastating for her to have not been included in that group. So that fear of missing out is very, very big. And this is in case you missed it. And the one they use a lot, to be honest. And in a sentence, in case you missed it, John was just awesome in the show. And the response would be, I know, right? I'm weak. I'm hysterical. I thought it was so funny. The Gen Z group, they have a language, they have all this stuff, but they also have stuff that matter to them more than anything else. When they are passionate, they are passionate. The way to engage them is to get them involved in what they believe to be the most important thing. The environment, absolutely number one. Gun control, number two. Mental health, racial and gender equity, and economic issues. Take them one at a time. Environment. I love the sign because it says there is no planet B, and there is no planet B. Climate change has been a pressing issue for many young people, particularly Gen Z. According to a 2019, now this is almost 4 years ago, by Amnesty International, 41% of the respondents cited global warming as the most important issue facing the world. When we talked earlier about the generations and what statistics we have in New York, Gen Z is across the world. You just have to look at what's happening in Iran and how this generation is speaking up for what they passionately believe in, what the women in that country are going through for a principle, for a right, is like nothing we've seen before. But this is the generation. If I believe it, I really, really do believe it. The mental health issues they're more than conscious of. The biggest mental health issue Gen Z deal with is anxiety. Now, again, this is 9 out of 10 people who have already been diagnosed with a mental health issue. Not all Gen Zers and not 9 out of 10 of Gen Zers. They struggle with anxiety. Nearly 8 out of 10 are battling depression, other mental health conditions, ADHD, PTSD, and OCD. These are the things that these young people are living with and facing every single day. Gun violence, gun control. Today is the 100th day of 2023, and there have been 146 mass shootings up to today, with the one yesterday making it 146. They want stronger laws. They are adamant about Black Lives Matter and inequity issues. They want the world to be kind and gentle. They want the government to intervene and make it happen. They do not want to sit by and let the world go by. They will support candidates who will do something about gun control. This is a big part of their lives. I talked about the effects of the school shootings on them. They go out, they go to these nightclubs. When you think about Pulse nightclub, they're out in the way. This is something that threatens them all the time. They would like to have sensible gun control, gun legislation. They are the victims of, not victims, but they were a part of the George Floyd, of looking at the violence in this world, violence of people to people. And they don't understand it. They don't understand why people do that. It truly is something that they struggle with on so many levels. For racial and gender equity, I had a student bring in a picture that he had found on social media. And it was a black lab, a white lab, and a chocolate lab, the 3 dogs. And he said to the group, "What do you see?" And they go, "Wow, really, these dogs are really cool." You know, that they were all in some kind of, motion. And he said, "But they're all just dogs, right? Which one would you take?" "Oh, I would take any one," or, "Oh, I like this one," or, "I like that one." And then he put up 3 people. He put up someone who was black, someone who was white, and someone who was brown. And he said, "Why can't we treat people like we treat the dogs?" And I just sat there. And he said, I mean, that to me was a very powerful statement, because he was spot on. And they are of that. Why do we do that? They don't understand. How has the world gotten that way? The abortion issue, big issue for them, because it's a right that is taken away. Whether they choose to have an abortion or not, it is not the question. The question is, this is a fundamental right. And most of the males and females that I have talked to get that as a fundamental right. So that was an interesting thing across the board. They are acceptance of blue hair, tattoos, piercings, anything that you want to be. Please be that person. Be yourselves. They are strong proponents of that. They are pro-government. I said that earlier. They like the use of pronouns. They like to be identified as who they choose to be identified by. From my generation, grammar was the biggest part of our education. We could diagram sentences, and we knew verbs and adverbs and adjectives. Well, when you have a student or anyone who comes to you and they say their pronoun is they, them, okay, and you're now writing something to someone about this person, and you know by saying Carole, that Carole was me, walked into the room and they proceeded to, and as soon as you see they, I automatically go, who was with Carole? Because Carole would be singular, they is plural. We have to change our thinking. And I was thrilled that I had to force myself in writing up about myself, because I did have 2 students who were identified as they, them, and they deserve to be treated with respect. But we have to rethink the grammar lessons that we had drilled into our heads and make sense of the words in a whole new way. And that's really important to them. They consider respect at the very top of their list of how they'd like to be treated. They're not asking for much, but they would like it to be clear. Economics. They fear the debt that Gen X and the millennials have accumulated. They see it, they don't want it. They believe college isn't the only path to success. They are more likely to attend a community college or a trade school first before they go further on. And they realize the limited job opportunities because the world has changed so much, and the challenge of affordable housing. There are more apartments being built in New Hanover County and starting in Brunswick County because they do not see themselves permanently living anywhere. They'll be here 5 years, they'll be here for a job, they'll be here to school, then they're moving on. They don't see the permanence of owning that home and having that. They also don't have the opportunities to have the money and the wherewithal to do that. They do like the government to intervene and give them support for college. They're very much in favor of that, and in housing and anything else that will make it equitable for everybody. In the short term, Gen Z stress is leading to an ambivalence and withdrawal in their professional lives. According to 2022 data from Gallup, they are the most disengaged group at work. They also report more overall stress and work-related burnout than any other cohort. This is 2 months ago. all of the things we talked about. They're isolated. They don't work well with groups. They don't have the skills because they have gaps. That is how it is expressed when they go out to work. And that is the most recent. A real quick look. This is the last slide. Where do we go from here? What does the future look like? If you want to reach them, you have to understand the media in which they live. You have to understand all of them. They will support the candidates that support their issues. They will come out for an issue that they believe in. They will not just come out in general. But if you have an issue on the environment and you want to get them involved, you will see them in droves. They also, if you engage them in those local issues that align with their goals, we will get them to see the value of voting, because most of them do not see the value. If I like the candidate, I'll vote. They won't vote for a party. They won't vote for a group. They will vote for one person. And if they don't like anyone, they just won't vote. So the job ahead of us is quite a bit. Don't know if we have time with all the technical things for questions. Anyone have any questions? Thank you for being so patient with all the technical issues.
So
Joanne,
how do we reach out to them?
how do we reach out to them? Great question. We go to the places that they go to. We have to be present on college campuses, whether it's Cape Fear community, and we have to be present in high schools. We have to volunteer to be in places to befriend them. They want to be friends with other generations and other people. We have to go meet them. They are not coming to us. So I would say reaching out to local schools, both high school and the Cape Fear, Brunswick Community College, and UNCW. They don't always. I'm sorry. The question was, how did the old school teachers connect? And I said, unfortunately, a lot of them don't. They're so entrenched in what they know to be good teaching. I can teach this biology course. I can teach physics. I can teach Shakespeare, but it's how we teach it. Part of what we do, part of this freshman seminar is to get, I'm doing a training at the end of the month, and we're teaching them how to teach differently, how to have them work in groups, how to be the guide on the side. You're no longer the sage on the stage. We have to change that thinking. And so it's all about group work. It's all about grading them differently. The grading system has changed tremendously because I'm asking them to do different things. Maybe a group project, maybe doing a presentation that instead of doing a report, yes, they still have to learn research principles, and yes, we take them through it, but what we do with what they've learned is different than a 7-page paper. They have to do the citations, but they're showing it to me in a way that they want to. My students last year, I grouped them and they did presentations. They absolutely blew me away with what they know about technology. And they had to show, they were doing a presentation to entice the next year's group of freshmen to really enjoy the seminar. They were zooming in and zooming out, and they interviewed people and how they put the, I could never do that, and they loved it. They loved doing that. I did a debate with them on banned books, and they did the research, and then they were put into two groups. What do you say? What do you say? And defend it. And they loved it. And when they did their review, they want that kind of learning. They want to be engaged in other things. How we get all of them, it's going to be generational. We're going to have a lot of retirements and a lot of new people coming into the profession. And unfortunately, if I go back to the school safety slide, there's not a lot of people wanting to be teachers. It's not what it was. You're not going to teach who taught you. It is a totally different world. Anyone else? Yes.
You mentioned that the way to help be friends with them is to meet them on their own territory, in school, colleges, etc. Most of the people in here are white hairs. And do you find that puts them off or not?
Could you repeat the question, please?
I will. The question was, if we're going to go in to meet them on their places, and they are these young people in the colleges, and the people that were represented here are of another generation, how accepting are they going to be? I think they can see beyond that and look at the shared issue. If you're going to just speak at them and say, everyone should vote, and voting is a right, and this is how you register, no, they're not going to respond well. But if you have an opportunity to work on something like the environment, like a mental health issue, if there's a fair or something where they have the medical students, the nursing students involved, and you're of that background and you get to talk to them there, it's easier to meet them there than it is to just pontificate about the right to vote. I had the college has someone, so of course I had them come and speak to them about registration and how to register. And she was a young girl, she was a student, and she was animated and she was informative, and they got it. They got all that. Now she works for a group on campus about voting rights and getting people to vote. The people that she works for are our generation, but they were smart enough to get someone younger to do that. So in some cases, I think we have to be able to do that as well. Who do we get to represent us that they might relate to in a better way? Anyone else? Bonnie?
So, Carole, we have a lot of questions, but we're ready to do, ready to be active on this and to re-engage with the students at UNCW. We've got the connection with you, and there is a group on interested in voting, and we have our own tools, and we have issues that align with theirs.
Mm-hmm.
We're very gun safety is one of ours, and women's health rights and environment.
Mm-hmm. I know we're front and center on that. Mm-hmm.
And if we could go to them and say, hey, we need some help with these. These are our issues, and I understand that these are your issues. How do we can immediately form a team that has its own budget and has its own communications list who would focus on that, and we have enough members interested in that. We had you as a liaison with UNCW and then find contact with others, and if there's enough of our membership interested in forming an action team, I just want to let you know that we can do that. And you have a budget, you have a lot of tools, you have a lot of resources, and national and state have resources and tools and things already done. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And we set up partnerships, which are kind of informal, with groups that have matched our interests, such as March for Our Lives. You know, they contacted us, and many of our women participated in those marches and so on. So we just have contacts among these different groups and go to them for help. Say, hey, you've got our issue.
I think part of that is getting someone who can manage technology and have your presence on TikTok, on Snap, on all of those, whether you go on it or not, that's where they are. They are there. And that getting someone who knows how to do that, engaging that group. I believe Marla had a group a couple of years ago, didn't she, at the college?
Yes.
And it was a technology group, right?
Yes, and someone, yes. They had, yes, we did, and we actually had someone develop Voter Girl.
But I did Vote a Girl.
You did Voter Girl, and then we used it because, you know, we had these contacts, and so we're willing to, if you go.
Speaking to the computer.
So we're willing to provide resources, to partner, to help, to learn from you. You help us, we help you. So we have the tools, and it's just, we need the members interested in this to, if they wanted to sign up for and create an action team to do this, we'll help you do that. It's the will to do it and the focus. We've got the focus, we got the contacts, we've got the money.
Got it, the trifecta.
I have time for one more question.
Anyone else? No? Well, again, thank you very much for letting me share something. I'll be very passionate about. Thank you.
Gonna go to the next slide.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, yeah. So just two things to wrap up. One, thank you for joining us for today's session. Most of you are aware we have recordings of this available on our YouTube site. Membership is open to anyone 16 years and older, and we have several dues options. And if you need more information, you can go to our website or also our Facebook page.